Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Push for Prevention Stipend webinar, Funding Your Environmental Prevention, Campus and Coalition Opportunities. This is Cindy Clowner. I'm the Program Manager for the Ohio College Initiative to Enhance Student Wellness here at Drug Free Action Alliance, and I have Brittany Sandage here with me as well. And we're really excited about the opportunity to grant to you a total of $20,000 in our Push for Prevention Stipend, which is an expansion from last year's Push for Prevention program in a couple of different ways that we'll be talking about today. So with that, let's begin by just introducing to you the two groups that are providing the stipends, one being the Ohio College Initiative, the program that I manage. So those of you on the call are representing probably one of these two groups that we're going to be talking about. And the Ohio College Initiative is a collaboration of 54 colleges and universities across the state, representing both 2-year and 4-year campuses, private and public. And the focus of the OCI is to promote the use of environmental prevention on our campuses here, and we do that by providing training and networking activities. A number of those include this past November we had a solutions summit where we actually brought together both our campus partners as well as their community partners to discuss the importance of town-gown relationships. We have a President's Luncheon coming up in February where we bring together our campus administrators to talk about the importance of attention on alcohol and drug-related issues on their campus. We do an annual meeting as well as a webinar series for our members who are part of the OCI. And one of the most exciting things that's happening this year is we are celebrating our 20th anniversary of doing this work, which is really great because Ohio set the stage for statewide collaboratives addressing alcohol and drug use issues as being the very first in the entire country. And so it's great that we have continued on and we're here 20 years later. And now I'm going to introduce to you Brittany Sandage, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about her work at Drug Free Action Alliance.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for sharing your lunch break with us. As Cindy indicated, my name is Brittany. I apologize in advance. I am coming off of a little bit of a sore throat, so if I sound just a little bit funny, you know, bear with me. It's Christmas. Just give me a pass. Just to give you a little bit of a sense of what we're doing this year, Cindy mentioned that this Push for Prevention Stipend is an expansion. Last year, through Drug Free Action Alliance and through our Ohio Center for Coalition Excellence, we introduced just very small stipends that were limited to coalitions only. And they were really intended just to kind of give a boost to existing strategies or to give a boost to coalitions that were forming and trying to really get a foothold for their prevention message in the community. That is just one of the ways that the Ohio Center for Coalition Excellence seeks to serve coalitions across the state of Ohio. In addition to some of these opportunities for funding, we're also very committed to connecting peers to one another. So if you haven't heard of it before, I encourage you to reach out to me or to check out our website and learn a little bit more about the Statewide Prevention Coalition Association. That is a peer-driven membership network that really brings together anywhere between 20 to 40 different communities every time that we meet 6 times a year, to trade secrets, talk about what's working in our communities, compare our challenges, and really learn from each other from a coalition and community leadership standpoint. The other opportunity available to coalitions, and most of what we do is substance misuse prevention, is looking at any kind of coalition technical assistance or training. If you need that for your own volunteers, if you are picking a strategy and you're not quite sure what your options might be, say you're looking at reducing underage drinking and you've got a couple different ideas, we certainly can be a resource for that in addition to helping you narrow down or prioritize some of the work that you may want to do in the community through your coalition. The final component that is available to each of you is with the advocacy work that we do here at Drug Free Action Alliance. Anyone who is a member of the Statewide Prevention Coalition Association, it's also open to our Ohio College Initiative members, is to get legislative updates from the State House, from what we know from our federal partners, things that are on the horizon, advocacy issues that matter to all of us, ways in which we can create a unified voice for prevention as well as looking at the different ways that substance abuse impacts Ohio. So I encourage you to kind of check more of that out and reach out with questions later. But those are the two networks that are really behind this push for prevention opportunity this year. So what are we doing? This year, we really wanted to build on a platform of community partnership and looking at environmental prevention in Ohio. So as we're looking towards the applications that we hope to receive from all of you and the great work you do, we're really looking for two different focus areas. Your application might be something that is looking to increase the number of environmental strategies being used. And we're going to touch a little bit on where you can learn more about those and what we mean by that as we go. The other opportunity, as I mentioned before, is just to really focus on how you can use innovative approaches to build prevention messaging into your community. So we know that each of you are facing different challenges, different substance abuse and misuse issues. We are prepared for that. It's about finding the right fit with the right context and the right approach for you, and how can we support that with some of these funding opportunities. So who is eligible? Pretty clear, cut and dry. I hope you all know. I hope you all fit. We are looking at college campuses, and as Cindy said, those can be 2- or 4-year campus locations, and community coalitions. We are, again, looking at 2 separate funding levels. So $2,500 is our top end, our $1,000 is our bottom. When you go through the application process, and we'll talk about this a little bit down the road, you're going to be asked to choose one of these. So really be mindful and thinking about what it is you genuinely need to carry out the project plan that you're proposing to us. As Cindy mentioned, $20,000 across the board. That money is split evenly. So $10,000 is allocated for the campus driven efforts, $10,000 for the coalition-driven efforts. So there's kind of an equal opportunity playing field. It's about finding the right applicant fit for you as you're working on your efforts. So just to get a little bit of a sense of who we've got on the call today, we do have a poll for you, and I'd like to just get a little bit of a sense of which category you're each looking at. So in terms of what you're thinking of right now, would you consider yourself to be a campus, a coalition, or a sort of undecided at this point? Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. So we had a pretty good response right there. What I'm seeing is we've got about 45% are looking to do this from coalition and 35% from campus. For those 20% in the undecided categories, please fear not. We're going to cover a little bit more about what the expectations are in each of those grant areas, and hopefully answer some of your questions as we go throughout this process. Okay. As we jump into this, for those of you who are a little less familiar with the term environmental prevention, if you're new to coalition work, please absolutely do not panic about this. There are lots of resources. That is what myself and Cindy are here to do. We are looking to fund the types of prevention activities that happen in a community and affect the most people possible. So while your initiative on a campus or in a community setting might incorporate a program or a curriculum or something of that nature, we are hoping to see with each of these applications a broader focus. So we are not looking to simply fund a one-time program delivery in the community. This is meant to be the type of strategy that, as the screen says, influences the community conditions people live in, the standards, the systems, what kind of policy works. Does not have to be large. It does not have to necessarily be fancy. It just needs to fit where your community is and what their prevention priorities are. So there are 7 environmental strategies kind of listed here. If you go to CADCA, or Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America, we've included that in the follow-up email today. You can get more information on that, but these are 7 types of strategies, just providing information. Perhaps it's building skills or providing support, all the way down to modifying policy that we know, if done in conjunction, really impact the largest number of people in a community. So as you're thinking about the scope, think about what that can look like for you, and please don't hesitate to come forward with questions. All right, so what does that mean? I know some folks probably are wondering, make that English. Some suggested project areas, these are taken from things that we've previously funded as well as things that we are hoping to fund in the future. Are you promoting prevention within the campus or the community? Is there a specific message you're trying to get across? That's absolutely an eligible project focus area. Are you currently working with law enforcement? That can be in two different functions. That might mean that you are looking to address retail concerns and access concerns, so you're doing some retail compliance checks. That might mean that you're just building capacity within the community. You're forming more of an informal educational partnership. Enhancing efforts with your faith-based community. That can take a lot of different forms, but it's certainly one of the community sectors that we know that are beneficial and sometimes hard for coalitions to engage in. Assessment activities. So if you recently participated in the Ohio College Initiatives webinar that looked at retail and environmental scanning, we talked a lot about how to go out and answer those unanswerable questions. So you know you have a problem with potentially tobacco or alcohol. What more data do you need? This project area, this grant opportunity, can in fact incorporate some of your assessment activity needs. So please, I encourage you to think about that if you are new starting out or you're looking to narrow your focus. And not last, but engaging your community leaders and stakeholders in the planning process. So we are very supportive of the strategic prevention framework process here at Drug Free Action Alliance with both the Ohio Center for Coalition Excellence and the Ohio College Initiative. It's a framework that we really build on. So incorporating opportunities for your leaders, if you need some support funding or some support activities to do that, we certainly will be supportive. And then finally, on a more kind of in the trenches building, if you have existing prevention efforts, so say you're working on National Prevention Week or you have a specific campaign, if you are already doing an environmental strategy and you know if you could just have a little bit more support, you could make it so much bigger and so much more impactful. Those tangible things are absolutely something that we would support with both of these opportunities.
So now that you have a better idea of the suggested project areas, and keeping in mind those are just suggestions, so you aren't bound to those specific areas, and if you have any questions about whether or not your project would be appropriate, then feel free to reach out to Brittany or myself. But now it's time to take a look at what exactly you can use funding for and what the limitations are. So funds can be used for a number of things to support those different project areas that we talked about, including printing or promotion, those costs associated with engaging law enforcement, any kind of project-related materials, capacity building activities, transportation assistance as long as it applies directly to your project. And if you're applying as a coalition, then you also can include financial assistance for your members to gain prevention education. And we're really looking at people who wouldn't necessarily have prevention experience, so not providing additional experience to your prevention specialist as part of your coalition. But if you have some community members that could benefit from that education, that would be an appropriate use of funds. There are some limitations, however. We really want the projects to be projects versus implementing a curriculum or a program in a school. And so we want the reach to be broad, and so that is one place where we wouldn't be able to use funding, as well as prom-related activities, the purchasing of equipment, subscriptions, as well as materials from Drug Free Action Alliance will not be able, or not an appropriate use of funding. And although you can use funding for food, beverage, and transportation, we ask that it is limited to no more than 20% of your total funds be used for each of those categories. And finally, the scope of the project must be substance misuse prevention. So that is what we're all about in both of our areas, and so that really needs to be the primary focus of the project that you submit for. So we've already had a number of questions that have been coming into us regarding funding, and so we thought maybe we would pose those here so that you had the opportunity to hear those responses, because there were great questions that were asked. So one of them was, if an applicant applies for $2,500, would it be possible that they would not be fully funded? And the answer is yes. it is possible that they might not be fully funded. We'll be looking as a review committee at the strategy, the timeline, the overall need for those suggested line items, and determining if $2,500 is appropriate. However, I think it's also important to note that we will award no less than $1,000 to an applicant. If you have any other questions regarding funding, feel free to reach out to us. One other note about funding, though, is you will receive full payment upon the receipt of your signed assurance. So you will get your full $1,000 or your full $2,500 at one time. So we're just taking a look at our grant timeline. Grant applications are due Tuesday, January 17th at the end of the day, and Monday, February 6th is when you'll receive your notice of award. We're trying to turn things around as quickly as possible to give you as much time as possible for your project, so we're asking that those of you who do receive award have your assurances signed and returned to us by the end of that week on Friday, February 10th. And then you'll have from the point that you have your assurance turned in until the final report is due to complete your project. And that final report is due to us June 16th. So about 4 months, a little over, to complete your project timeline. So the selection of the grants will be based on the following criteria that you see here. So again, we're really focused on environmental prevention strategies. So are you using that appropriately? And part of environmental prevention, what makes it successful, is the collaborative process and engaging multiple sectors. So if you're in a coalition, that could be community sectors. If you're on campus, it could be departments or units on your campus. For both community and coalition and campus, it could be each other if you are in a campus community. So those of you who are applying on behalf of a college, we would love to see you engage not just multiple units on your campus, but also community sectors. And if you are in a community that has a campus, we would love to see a campus involved as one of those community sectors if appropriate. We're also looking for something innovative and creative. So if you have a way to promote prevention messaging that is something outside the box, we would love to see that, and this can be an opportunity to fund those projects. And it's really important that you also have identified a project leader that has the ability to complete all of the requirements in terms of the project as well as reporting requirements.
And this is where Cindy gives me the fun job of talking about all of the reporting requirements. So I'd like to just start off by saying we do not intend for these to be prohibitive for anyone. The reporting requirements are to ensure that you are not only completing what you hope to, but that we can identify methods in which to improve the support, the resources available to you as we build on this program over the coming years. And we know that for the amount of money that we're asking, there are a key number of things we need from you. We are not expecting a 15-page report from anyone for $1,000, so I'll go ahead and make you feel better now. Every recipient, regardless of what it is that they're hoping to fund, will be required to submit a brief narrative that's just going to look at the timeline of your activities, what were you proud of. If you faced any challenges, that's okay. What were they? Let's talk about them. There will not be any kind of consequence to encountering real-life, messy community challenges. We know that those exist. We hope if you are doing any kind of campaign or you're doing any kind of community event, we will be looking for any kind of video or photo documentation of that to include in some of the promotion and to build your capacity so we can highlight the good work you're doing. We'll look for the number of people that are reached. So however your project tends to function, that will be something that you're expected to track to the best of your abilities. And as Cindy had mentioned earlier, that final report will be due Friday, June 16th. We understand that maybe a few things could still be happening, but you should have most of the meat of the project either completed or in its final stages of implementation at that point. So what else could we be looking for? Those are the things that everyone will be responsible for. For particular requests, so I had mentioned earlier law enforcement. If you are doing something related to retail compliance checks, or if you are looking for any reason to build on maybe a saturation patrol, to look at party patrols, those are going to require hours and time for the officers in question, more than likely. If that is the type of request that you're making, we're going to expect what number of hours that officer worked, what types of incidents did he or she respond to during that time frame. So it really depends on the sophistication level of what you're looking for, but certain types of requests will have strings, and those will all be laid out in the assurances if we deem that that's required. So in looking at maybe your assessment-related activities, for example, if you are looking to do environmental scanning, or maybe you are trying to use a small portion of the money to get a risk behavior survey moving or a community perception survey moving, we're going to need to be able to see copies of those surveys or those tools that were used, and hopefully a summary result of what those are. We understand that there could be some confidentiality in terms of the raw data, but we will need some sort of summary report if that's something that you asked for. In terms of engaging the community leaders and stakeholders, often if there were any kind of advocacy-related activities here and you're hosting a meeting, we're going to want to maybe have a copy of the agenda, especially if you were using any of the food costs, so we can kind of see what the intent was. So it's just a matter of simple documentation of kind of how your project evolved over time. And as I said, it helps us to improve the resource support that we offer you throughout this process. Most importantly, doesn't mean that there's a magic number for it. There should be something we can identify that we can measure qualitatively about your experience and quantitatively. So the activities that you did, are we able to figure out how you're planning to measure those from the application? And are you able to kind of demonstrate who you're going to get the testimony from of how this process went? Very, very straightforward, very easy to collect, but just looking for quality of experience and level of impact. Okay, so here comes the fun part. I hope everyone is feeling excited about online applications. We wanted to give you, if you haven't had a chance to go through it yet, a quick view of what the portal actually looks like. So what you see on your left is currently a screenshot of the very first landing page. You'll see that there's a timetable, and beneath that there are two links. One, to download the complete proposal package so that you can review all of the prompts that are going to be asked of you throughout the process, as well as character limits and all that good stuff. There's also a template for your budget for you to use. We encourage you to use that template. It is not required. So again, on the landing page, you will see both of those things. One important tip with the service that we're using at this point, there are a couple of things we encourage you to do. Because of the character counts, prepare your responses in Word. Make sure you're saving it. You just never know when a system's going to crash or your browser's going to go down, or the McAfee security system's going to give you an alert. So we really encourage you to go ahead and reference the narrative prompts that are in the package, the downloadable PDF document you all received, and prepare those responses. Be able to just copy and paste these in here when you're ready to go. It will help you. It will help you also identify if you're going over, because if you're like me, you really like to talk about the great work your community is doing, and we get that. Tip number 2, when you get through the process, you are going to be asked to upload some documents. So one of the questions that I saw come through here were who is eligible in terms of a 501c3 or other. If you are a government entity or a 501c3, you are eligible to submit that you are qualified for this. Or an institution, a university, a college. The entire list of those eligible parties are in the RFA packet, but please feel free to reach out to us if you still have questions. When you get to this upload, this is where you will place your project budget, so you can either use the template we mentioned, or if you're submitting your own version, please just submit it in a PDF format. It's simpler. We've run into less problems that way. And under the applying entities, you'll see that it asks for the tax-exempt status. Whichever is the fitting requirement for you and your institution, agency, or nonprofit is appropriate. When you get to this point and you've uploaded, we give you a word of caution. You can back up, but at this point, as you're moving forward, when you click the blue arrow on the bottom right, you are done. You're going to get a thank you. We're going to have your application in hand, and at that point, we're rocking and rolling. So we'll be reviewing and hoping to be able to fund your project scope. So when you get to this upload, feel good, guys. Feel really good about it, because that will be your last moment to actually submit the application. So I do have a couple of questions coming in, and I'm going to kind of take a moment and pass this over. But as I do, if I can ask Cindy, if you can just speak briefly to whether or not someone who's doing a partnership between communities and colleges or universities, how would they make their decision?
That's a great question, and I know a number of you are working together in your community with your campus and vice versa. And so our recommendation to you would be to determine where the bulk of the activities that you're requesting funding for will take place. So if the bulk of them are taking place in your community, then I would request as a community. If the bulk of those activities are taking place on a campus, then you can request as a campus. And so those of you who are challenged to determine which one would be the right fit for you because you have such a strong partnership between the two of you, that would be our recommendation for how to determine which category you would fit in.
I have a wonderful question from Allison asking whether or not the campus and the coalition could, if they have complementary programs, could they both apply? At this point, no. If it is focusing on the same project scope, we are looking for one application in order to better serve and support the grantees. So I hope that helps a bit. I have a great question from Tanis. Can we address tobacco prevention? Absolutely. As we spelled out earlier, we are looking at substance abuse. So as long as it falls within that realm, you are absolutely eligible to submit a project plan for that. There will be a section in the online application that asks you to document, what is the statement of need? What is the data that's showcasing this as something in your community? As long as you feel confident in what you have to support it, we welcome the project scope. An additional question from Brandy. Can the funds be used for incentives for students who help with an environmental scan? Absolutely, within measure. We can't expect $100 per use, unfortunately. But as long as it is a reasonable, that is an allowable cost or line item within your project scope. So I hope that helps. And a final question, if you guys have them, we will stay on and answer any that you have. But at this point, my final question is, can we assess individual substance abuse behavior among college students under assessment activities? That is a wonderful question. Unfortunately, no. As we've spelled out throughout this, we are really looking at the environmental nature of this. These are prevention-based dollars. So we are not able to do individual-based assessment. This is for community and environmental assessment only. So I'm sorry we can't do it all, but that is one limitation at this point. I had a question from someone, Anne, thank you. I'm sorry that you're having some connection issues. For everyone on the call today, we have recorded this entire session, and when you receive a follow-up email, you will get a link to our YouTube video to be able to watch this again. So absolutely watch it, absorb it. We know we threw a lot at you today. Both Cindy and I are here and happy to answer any of your questions via email or phone call. We also happen to be roommates, so if one of us doesn't have the answer, there you go. We'll get it for you. So to reach out to either one of us, if you are a campus and or even you're looking at a campus and community partnership and you're just not sure where you fall, you can absolutely reach out to Cindy. Her information is there. In addition, if you are not sure you're a coalition maybe, or you're not sure that your coalition strategy really fits that environmental strategy mold or is close enough to meet the mark, please don't hesitate to reach out to me as well. We're here. We are just excited to be able to offer this opportunity to all of you and to be able to continue to build on environmental prevention and community-based partnership across Ohio. So with that, the questions have slowed, so I don't want to hold up any more of your lunch break time. This has been a wonderful half-hour session. I hope that you got some of your questions answered. If you have not, again, do not hesitate to reach out. And if we do not speak with you, have very safe, and very happy holidays. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.